Hi, and welcome to another Enrichment with the Gifted Guy. What we're going to be talking about today is the passion project. So, what is a passion project? A passion project is something that you have always wanted to learn, but have either never taken the time to do so, or things kind of get in the way, or some kind of barriers prevented you from doing this. But if you had some time to yourself and you had the discipline to do it, you would like to learn how to do this. For example, I have always wanted to learn how to play the banjo. It is an instrument that I am really deeply interested in, and yet I have never taken the time to buy a banjo or to watch banjo lessons on YouTube or anything of that nature. So it will remain uh, unaired passion, so to speak. What a passion project is picking something though that you can do something about, that you're willing to do something about, that you are going to take the time to do something about. This is not something that your teachers have assigned or your parents have asked you to do or anything of that nature. It's something that you really want to do. So the passion project does not need to be academic in nature. To help you in your journey, I'm going to provide you with some structure. When you go to learn anything, no matter what it is very helpful to have structure. And this structure can come in many forms. It can come in goals, it can come in deadlines, it can come in expectations. But if you don't have these, then it's very easy to abandon your passion project. So, for example, let's go back to my banjo example. Let's say that I really wanted to learn how to play the banjo. Well, I would have to go through a certain amount of steps. I can't do a concert the first week. I would have to first off either rent or buy or borrow a banjo from somebody. I would have to learn basic notes, and it's not something that would happen overnight. It was something that would have to take a while in order to get it. And some things you can get quicker than others, but like learning to play a banjo would take me years and years and years. And there are some people that have been playing banjo their whole life and are still learning how to play the banjo. But there are other things that you can pick that aren't so time consuming, but are something that you could do within a reasonable amount of time. So, what I'm laying out here for you is a structure that you can use. So, in this case, I would give yourself 4 weeks to work on this passion project. But again, this is not something that you have to turn in or something that anyone's going to hold you accountable to. The only person that holds you accountable for a passion project is yourself and whether you did it or not. But again, having the structure is going to help give guidance to that and to help you reach your goal. So, some things to consider. What's something you've always wanted to know that you have never taken the time to learn about it? Or what is something that you've always wanted to do, to learn how to do, that you've never taken the time to do that? Uh, when I think about school, I don't necessarily think about school as a place where kids go because they love learning. Kids go to school because they have to go to school. There are some kids that certainly go for the other reasons, but for the most part, kids are going because they're made to go. What if you just did something because you wanted to do it because you love doing it? What couldn't learning be like that, where it's just something that you really want to do? It's so much easier to do something you're passionate about because the thing that's driving you, that's motivating you, is your passion to do it. So you want to pick something that you feel really strongly that you can accomplish. You don't, and you want to have realistic goals. Like I said, learning to play the banjo would not be a good goal for me to accomplish in 4 weeks. But there are other goals that I could pick that would be attainable in that time. So the product that you have is either you have finished what it is that you set out to do. So let's say, for the sake of argument, for your knowing, you have decided to read a particular book that you've always wanted to read but you never have. So your goal would be to finish that book. You don't have to do a book report or like a report out of what you learned, but you could certainly do things that would help you with your learning, such as reflecting, doing a reflection journal or things of that nature. But again, this is not something that you're going to be turning in. When it comes to a doing project, kind of the same thing. Are you going to show a successful, round of doing what it is that you've learned to do? So, let's say, for the sake of argument, it was learning to play the banjo. Then I might have me playing a song on video to capture that I did accomplish what it is I set out to do. And so that's what you have to determine for yourself is what your product is going to be. What is going to show at the end to prove that you did what you said you were going to do. And again, no one is holding you accountable to this but yourself, which is what kind of makes it interesting. And also what makes it easy to abandon or to not accomplish. And again, that's why I'm going to provide you with structure and order to help you guide you through this. Here are some examples of knowing passion projects. Knowing is, you're going to read something or you're going to study something. It usually is not as hands-on as a doing project. So some examples here is you could learn how to do some of the basics of foreign language. So you'd have to study that. You'd have to watch videos on that. You'd have to, really study on that. It could be about reading a specific book that you've always wanted to read, that you never got around to reading. Again, it seems like a doing, but you're actually knowing by reading that book. It does take action to do that, though. It could be a skill rather than something academic. So it could be a skill such as how to repair something, learning how to do that. It could be something like how to study, which is a really important skill to learn. It could be a life skill, so something you're not necessarily going to use right now, but will become very important later on. So, for example, being able to balance a checkbook is a skill that you'll use once you're old enough to be worrying about your own finances, or making a professional resume will become, helpful when you're trying to get a job. So those are some examples of knowing. And when you demonstrate the knowing, when you demonstrate mastery of the knowing, it can come in a few forms. It doesn't have to come in a product necessarily, but the fact of the matter is by having an authentic audience, this makes your project more legitimate. It makes it more real. In other words, if you just say, I'm going to read a book, and when I finished, I know I've done my passion project. It's easy to not fulfill that or not follow through, because the only person holding you accountable is yourself. And sometimes it's easy to let yourself off the hook. But if you said, oh, there's a book I've always wanted to read, they're doing a book study at the library on this. I'm going to read the book and participate in the book study. Then it becomes more legitimate, it becomes more real. Or like when it comes to studying, you don't have to necessarily demonstrate that you're studying, but you would have to, you would want to make sure that maybe you do a video on how to study so that others can learn from what you know, from what you learned from your knowing project. Sometimes the knowing projects do lead into doing. So for instance, the CPR, you have to study, you have to know what to do when it comes to CPR. There are certain steps that you have to memorize and learn. But in order to demonstrate this, you actually have to do the CPR. And so sometimes the knowing passion projects can lead to a doing when it comes to demonstration of mastery. But it does require that you know. Here's some examples of doing projects that you could consider. So you can learn a new sport or how to build something. Because you've gone online, you've learned that, and then you actually build that. It could be a skill such as being able to publicly speak, which is really important 21st century skill, or how to dance. You want to learn to dance, and that's perfectly okay. It doesn't seem academic in nature, but it doesn't have to. It's something that you've wanted to learn how to do. Again, you can have some life skills. So how to sew is a life skill that you'll use. Once you learn how to do it, you can use that the rest of your life. Or how to change a flat tire. That's something that you never expect to happen, but once it does, if you don't know how, it can be real troublesome. So knowing how to do that's really important. So you can see some examples of the doing, and then how you demonstrate these is by actually doing what it is. So for example, if you chose photography, then you would want to display your photographs either to family and friends, or make an online gallery, or something of that nature where you're showing what it is that you learned. If you want to publish a story, then you would actually reach out to publishers and with a query letter and try to get your piece published. And success or failure is not whether they accept it. It's the fact that you are willing to try that and make that effort to do that. What are the tools that you would use in order to have this structure to do this passion project, whether it's the knowing or the doing? One of those is what I call a contract. And this is just something that puts it on paper, not for anyone else necessarily, but just puts it on paper for yourself so that again, when something is written down, it becomes much more legitimate because you see it and you're reminded of it. If you just say, I'm going to do this, but you don't write it down anywhere, it's easy to stop or to forget that. So this is an example of a contract that I would use. And on here, you would do things like put what is it that you hope to learn by doing this knowing or doing? What are skills that are not part of your learning objectives necessarily, but of what you would learn? So it might be kind of behind the scenes skills. So in other words, if your learning objective is I want to learn how to sew, you're going to have to learn certain skills like how to operate a sewing machine. And you could put those there. The overall goal of the project is what do you want to accomplish with this project? What is it that you want to be able to show that you know or do that you have learned? And then the product of the project, like I said before, is simply the what do you show that demonstrates mastery that you either know this now or you know how to do this now. And again, by having a concrete product of some sort, it makes it so that you're going to be you kind of have a finish line to go toward, rather than just petering off and at the end of whatever it is that you're learning. You actually have I have to get to this point. It gives you a concrete finish line that you can strive for. So a contract is an example of one thing that you might do, and I'll show you how this could be filled out. The second thing is a calendar. And the reason why a calendar is really helpful, it's just helpful in general, but a calendar is going to help you to visually see what this is going to look like, and how you're going to break down what it is that you're learning how to do into parts. Because again, you don't just wake up one morning and you can play the guitar. You have to start really basic. How do getting a guitar in the first place, and what are the different notes? Do you know how to read music? So it has to lead up, and then by the end of the 4 weeks, you might be able to play a tune or whatever. But you can't just start playing a tune by picking up guitar randomly. So this helps you break it down and helps you see, if you're meeting your goals, are you on the path of meeting your goals, or there's some things you have to do to readjust because it may your calendar, keep in mind, is not written in stone. It's written in pencil. So you may have to change it from time to time. You may have to add things. You may have to take things away. You may have to extend things. So a calendar would be a second tool that you could use for your passion project. The last tool that you might consider using for your passion project is a rubric. A rubric just sets the expectation and determines for yourself, what it is that shows success and what it is that shows that maybe you weren't as successful as you would hope to have been. This could certainly be used by a teacher. And our rubrics are used in the classroom all the time to evaluate students, but this is for yourself. So you would create this rubric yourself, and you would determine what does mastery look like. And you want to set a high bar for yourself of what that looks like. When you're creating your rubric, and you can choose not to do a rubric, but again, having something written down and having a goal that you're heading toward or that you're aspiring for, just makes it more the whole thing more concrete. And is probably, by having this rubric, it's probably going to make it more likely that you are going to complete this passion project. Because we all start on passion projects in our lives, and eventually they fall by the wayside, or we get bored with them, and we're not as passionate about them, or whatever. But if you truly want to follow through with your passion project, having these tools of the calendar and the rubric and the contract are going to be very helpful toward you, reaching that particular goal. So I'm going to give you an example of a doing project that I have always wanted to do. I have always wanted to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube. Even ever since I was a little kid, I was always envious of people that could do that. My brother could solve them, and I always want to learn how to do that. But I never was disciplined enough to sit down and to work on that and work at it. Even when you buy Rubik's Cube, it comes with directions on how to solve it. But even following those, I had a lot of difficulty because I'm more of a visual person. So what I have to figure out in my passion project is how I'm going to break that down and what that looks like. So I'm going to walk you through how I would write up my structure of how I'm going to solve a Rubik's Cube. So in using the tools that are going to help me to be able to complete my passion project, this is again what provides the structure for me, and kind of guides me what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to start with my contract. So I'm going to come up with 3 learning objectives of what I want to learn through this project. So obviously the first one is how to solve the Rubik's Cube. That would be my very first one. And that seems like the most obvious one, but there are other parts to this. So I have to be able to learn the patterns used to make one side a same color, because that's what you do is you solve the different sides, and there are patterns involved with this. And if I can learn these patterns consistently and I'm able to replicate these patterns, I should be able to solve the entire thing. The other thing I want to be able to do is to solve the Rubik's Cube consistently. In other words, what I don't want is I don't want that I got lucky one time that I solved it, because sometimes that can happen. So I'm going to be able to consistently solve it. So if I walked away from it for a day, I could come back to it and solve it again. So I do want to make this a lifelong skill that I consistently can do. So when it comes to skills learned, so what are some things I'm going to have to learn? So for one thing I'm going to have to learn, because I've already explained that I don't do well at reading directions and figuring something out. I do better visually, so watching someone. So I have to, the one skill I'm going to have to find YouTube videos that show me how to solve. So I'm going to have to locate those, watch those, and hopefully that will help me to learn that. Another thing is I'm going to learn is dexterity. Dexterity is your ability to move your hands nimbly, and that's all. In order to solve a Rubik's Cube, it's not a race, but I do need to be able to turn, the different parts and make so that I can eventually get to the patterns that I want to do. So that's another thing. Another skill is I'm going to have to. So I want to. And part of my goal is going to be is I want to make a video that shows others how to solve a Rubik's Cube. So basically, I'm going to have to become adept enough at solving this that I can actually show others how to do it as well. In order to make that video, I have to learn how to make a video. So I may already have that knowledge, but it's a skill that I'm definitely going to be learning. So my overall goal is, as I stated, is to make a video that shows others how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And the reason why this is my overall goal rather than just solving is because by me putting it out there that I really have to understand how to do it in order to show others. So I can't, just tell people how to do it when I don't know how to do it myself. I have to learn it in order to be able to do that. So, and this makes it more legitimate because I'm actually putting it out there in this video. So this video, in a month from now, you should see another Enrichment with a Gifted Guy where I'm showing people how to solve a Rubik's Cube. So that's my product, is an Enrichment with the Gifted Guy where I teach others how to solve. So that is going to be my end goal. So 4 weeks from now, hopefully I'm able to do that. But by saying I'm doing that, it puts it out there and it makes it more of a goal that I have to achieve, because it's not just me saying, oh, well, I'm going to solve it and then eventually get around to it. This puts a timeline on what I'm going to be doing. So that's how I might write my contract up. And this just gives me a written version of what I'm going to be doing so I can turn to this from time to time. The next tool for structure is going to be your calendar. So the calendar is basically breaking down all the things. It's hard to start at the beginning, though, and do that. So I'm going to start at the end. So on the last day of this project, I am going to post my Enrichment with the Gifted Guy video. So that is going to be the last thing that I'm going to do. In order to be able to post that, I actually have to make the video. So make the video. And may take me more than a single day. So this may take me a few days. So I may have to give me 3 days in order to make the video. Actually, just give me the whole week. And that way, if I get done earlier, it still gives me more time. So I actually make the video. In order to make the video, I have to plan how I'm going to teach it. So that's what I'm going to come up with here, is plan how to teach how to solve. So how am I going to break that down for others to see that? And again, this planning is not going to take just a single day. It's going to take several days. So this is my plan. So those are my final 2 weeks. But in order to be able to plan how to teach how to solve, I have to solve it. So I'm putting solve the Rubik's Cube. So I'm giving myself 2 weeks to learn how to do that. And so what this is going to look like is I'm going to give myself 15 minutes every day that I have to work on this. So work for 15 minutes. And I'm just going to put that throughout my calendar all the way until I get, so if I need to learn though in order to do that. So on this day, I'm going to figure out how to actually, how to do the patterns. And in order to do that, I have to watch a YouTube video learning the patterns. So what you see here is, now I've gone all the way to the beginning, but if you walk it through the other way, I'm going to watch a YouTube video first. Then I'm going to figure out how the patterns that they're showing me, how I do them. And then I'm going to work for 15 minutes for a couple of weeks on trying to get consistent with this. And then by the end of the second week, I should be able to solve this Rubik's Cube. Once I've learned how to solve that, then I'm going to plan how to teach others to solve it. I'm going to shoot a video, and I'm going to post that video. So I've met all my learning objectives. I've met my goal. I've met my product. It's all contained here with the calendar. So what I can do is, if I come to day 8 and I already know how to consistently solve it, I could start planning how to teach it earlier. Or I may get to day 10 and I just don't know how to consistently solve the Rubik's Cube. So I may have to, bleed into day 11 and 12 on how to do that. When I get to at day 4, I may say, you know what? I only worked 5 minutes on it yesterday. So now I need to increase it to 30 minutes. I'm going to work on it today. So this is examples of how the calendar is not written in stone. It's very fluid, but I do want to keep my end goal there at the same place, because then it gives me a deadline to work towards. The final thing is then the project rubric and how I'm going to evaluate. So the first thing is the video itself. So I want to show what an excellent video looks like. And then I have to have my demonstration. So what is the demonstration of what this looks like, so being able to solve it, and then is my explanation of it. So I'm demonstrating it. So these are the 3 categories I'm going to use. And then what I would do with my rubric is I would go through and describe what it looks like if I did an excellent job, what it looks like with a good job, what it needs improvement. Now, I'm not just going to state, did an excellent job at the video. I'm going to show what an excellent video looks like. It's well produced. It runs well. You can visually see what's going on. It has graphics if it needs it. So I would show what that would look like. And I'm not going to go into making this rubric all this detail, but this is how I would start to make my rubric. Now that I have my plan in place and how I'm going to do this, I have to make sure I have all the materials that are needed. So one of the materials I'm going to need is having an actual Rubik's Cube. I can't solve it if I don't have one. So I happen to have one already. If I didn't, I would want to go out and purchase one or to borrow one from somebody. So that's one thing I'm going to do. Another thing I'm going to need is that I fear that it's going to be difficult to solve this Rubik's Cube, that it has 9 sides per side with 6 sides all the way around, and it's going to be very difficult to solve. So I'm going to start a little bit easier. They make a kind of a mini Rubik's Cube. It looks like this, which is only 4 sides. and it comes with it's a sick, it's less to solve. So I'm going to start with this. So this is material I didn't absolutely need, but it's going to scaffold and help me lead up to how to solve this. Other materials I'm going to need is I'm going to need access to YouTube through the internet to find the videos that I need. I need a program such as WeVideo, which is what I'm going to use to film my demonstration. So I have to make sure I have all those materials in order to be able to start my project. So if I were learning how to cook, that was my doing. I cook something consistently. I have to have those materials in order to be able to cook, or otherwise I'm not going to be able to demonstrate what it is that I learned. So these are the materials I'm going to need. You'll have to determine what the materials that you're going to need. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to check back in 4 weeks and see if I have posted an enrichment with a gifted guy where I am solving a Rubik's Cube. For me to put my money where my mouth is. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is to work on your own passion project. Don't do this because you're you doing it for school or for parents or whatever. Do it for yourself. And with that in mind, even when school ends for the summer, it's okay. Passion projects is something that you love to do. So, I'm going to be doing this over the summer, learning how to solve this Rubik's Cube. Even though my year will be over, I'm going to continue on. So that's the nice thing about a passion project is you don't let, a structure or calendar prevent you from doing what you want to do. You can do it anytime that you want to. You just have to have the willpower and the determination. And hopefully with the tools I'm giving you, you have a little structure that is going to help you to be able to accomplish your passion project.